Wednesday, February 4th, full of energy today as we welcome a very special guest, Ryan Wilson, here to talk about the NFL Draft. This is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. We will talk about some offensive coordinator news. Matt Nagy going to the Giants. Do we like that? How are we feeling about that? We'll talk about it a little bit later because we got to talk about NFL Draft prospects first. I have such a good question for Ryan. I think I'm going to ask you the first question. You're going to go, ooh, that's a good question. And people are going to really like it, Ryan. So welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. It's always good to see you. I know that the draft season is upon us if I get to come on the podcast with you. And by the way, Dave and Jamie, I just realized Adam asked me about the podcast that we do. I literally have it right behind me on this big television screen. So thank you for recognizing With the First Pick.
I know you do the With the First Pick podcast. I just wasn't sure what the schedule was.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
So what was coming up in programming wise, but you can tell us about. So Ryan is our CBS Sports NFL Draft Oracle, which is a title that I looked up expert synonyms and I decided to go with it. Yeah. So thank you for being here. And
that's gonna stick. I like that.
What'd you say?
The Oracle is gonna stick. I'm gonna change my his name in my phone to the Oracle.
What is the schedule for With the First Pick?
So we're going to be doing probably around 3 times a week as the draft approaches. I think we're less than 80 days in, so it'll be me and former Titans GM Rand Carthon. Dave and I were at the Senior Bowl last week. We did some podcasts there with our guy JP Acosta, and that is the plan going forward, fast and furious, and a lot of mock drafts for people to get fired up about because, as you guys know, people on the internet are always calm and reasonable, so that is one more way to get them to get to that point.
Okay, here's my first question. This is such a good question. Okay, here we go. Imagine a world where Cam Ward, Fernando Mendoza,
here we go,
Ashton Genty, and Jeremiyah Love are all in the same draft class. Rank them.
Yeah, so here's the math that I have to do because you don't want to let the 2025 NFL season affect your rankings. So if I go back in time, I would have Cam just ahead of Fernando. Like, I love both those guys. I think Cam actually played relatively well on a Tennessee team that has a ton of issues. And you guys obviously talked about the wide receivers and the tight end sort of doing their thing as the season progressed in Tennessee. So I'd have Cam a smidge ahead of Fernando. But if you took Fernando over Cam, I would understand that had you been the Titans a year ago, for example. And I'll take it a step further. If I were ranking Bijan, Jameer, Ashton, and Jeremiyah, it would be, if I'm being truthful in the order how I had them graded, it would be exactly that. It would be Bijan, Jameer, Ashton, and Jeremiyah. Now, Ashton did not have a great season last year for the Raiders. Let's just blame Chip Kelly. We'll see how it works in year 2. I love Jeremiyah Love. I don't think he is he's not quite at that level yet. They're all ones, and he's a 1A, but he's going to be a top 10 pick.
Okay. That was the only question I had. So
that wasn't even a question. You didn't ask a question.
I did. Okay. How would you rank them? Is what I
That would have been a question. You didn't ask it. You were just rank them.
My last question, and then I'm gonna.
Ryan, can you host our podcast too?
That was the question. How about Tedero McMillan versus who is your wide receiver 1? Is it Tate? Who's
Yeah, Carnell Tate, and then Jordan Tyson, Arizona State. If he could stay healthy, he'll probably find his way into that conversation. But I like Ted McMillan. And the funny thing last year, although I suppose he doesn't like being called Ted, I like Tedero McMillan. But again, and you guys know this, as we get through the draft process, you find reasons not to like guys. And there was some mumbling about Tedero McMillan not loving football or, goofing off of the pro day, whatever it was. He is exactly who he should have been. He went 9th overall, I think. I think Carnell Tate has a chance to be a top 10 pick. If teams are okay with Jordan Tyson's injury concerns, and they're not big ones, just, soft tissue stuff that doesn't allow you to play every week, maybe he finds his way into the top 15. But I would still lean with Tedero.
Okay. Dave, talk.
Hello. I was at the Senior Bowl with Ryan. We've already talked about that twice on the show. I don't know about Ryan, but I felt like there wasn't a single offensive player there who was worthy of, certainly not a first-round pick, maybe a couple that were second-round picks, and that's my first exposure to this rookie class. And, I mean, I know about some of the other players that we're going to talk about drafting today, but I'm really looking forward to hearing the comps that you have for the Carnell Tates, Jordan Tyson, Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion, all those receivers. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but it feels like there's this huge tier gap between Mendoza and the other quarterbacks, Jeremiyah Love and all the other running backs, and Kenyon Sadiq and all the other tight ends. Is that just kind of how it is this year?
Yeah, no, that's right. That's exactly right. The quarterbacks obviously were affected by Dante Moore deciding to go back to Oregon. Ty Simpson came out, but if and I know less about fantasy football rules than Azer knows about my podcast, but like if Ty Simpson, for example, only started 15 games last year. So when he gets drafted, possibly in the first round, the Jets have 2 first-round picks. The Rams have 2 first-round picks. The guys who have started 15 or fewer games that were first-round picks, the list is not a illustrious one. It's Anthony Richardson, it's Mitchell Trubisky, and it's Dwayne Haskins. And after that, Cam Newton, but Cam Newton also played a full year junior college after he'd left Florida. So you have to do that math as well if you're an NFL team, and obviously if you're fantasy considerations. I think that's a dynasty situation. Did I get that part right?
Yep.
Yes.
But wide receivers, the running backs, you're exactly right. There's Jeremiyah Love, and it's going to be wide open after that. His teammate Jadarian Price could end up being a day 2 pick, maybe running back 2. We'll see. Jonah Coleman out of Washington's another name. And then Kenyon Sadiq, who didn't have the season at Oregon that we thought he might. The year before, he was a little flashier, and he played with Terrence Ferguson on that Oregon team. And then after that, it is wide open, and there may not be another tight end off the board until later in day 2 and maybe even day 3.
If I were a dynasty fantasy manager and I wanted to start studying these rookies, would you point me in the direction of the Senior Bowl? And if so, which players would you recommend from that game that I dig into as possible? Let's say day 2 guys. They're definitely going to be taken in day 2, and they're going to have a chance to make an impact as a rookie.
Yeah, the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl has gotten better each and every year. I got to give a shout out to my guy, Eric Galka, the director over the Shrine Bowl, who's done a great job in the time he's been there. But Dave, you and I watched. Let's go through some of the names here. Malachi Fields out of Notre Dame, big physical receiver. I think he had a good week. He was late day 2 guy for me before the week, and he'll probably stay there. But he's a Jawan Jennings type in that he's a big target. He's probably not going to win consistently down the field, but he's such a contested catch guy that he's going to be able to make catches that other receivers want. You talked about Casey Concepcion. He was supposed to be there. He pulled out. He's a slot receiver. He's going to be about 5'11", but he does a lot of the things. Think Khalil Shakir if you want in terms of the versatility and the returnability. Chris Brazzell is another guy who wasn't at the Senior Bowl, but he is just a deep threat, plays at Tennessee. He's probably going to be 6'3", 6'4", and just throw jump balls to him in terms of pushing the field. And then a couple guys that we did see at the Senior Bowl, Dave, Ted Hurst out of Georgia State, who transferred from Valdosta State, 6'3", super physical. I thought he had a better week than Malachi Fields. People tend to disagree with me, but he's a similar type player. I think he's a little bit more dynamic. And I'll mention Jacoby Lane out of USC, another big receiver who was getting open down the field. And those guys, as we like to say, probably helped themselves in Mobile, Alabama. But again, there's probably going to be 4 or 5 receivers that go in round 1. And then after that, it'll be interesting to see how teams feel about these players, because based on your need and what you like to do offensively will sort of inform how these receivers start to come off the board after the top 4 or 5.
Jamie, how are you?
I'm great.
How are you feeling about this draft class, Jamie?
I mean, after listening to, first Dave's report from Mobile and then, now Ryan, it's doesn't sound great from what those guys saw there. But, I think like any draft class, as we reviewed your terrible trade that you recently made about Malik Neighbors for 2 late first-round picks, you could still find some pretty good players that will be available later in fantasy drafts. I'm curious about Ryan's process with his mock drafts. When you sit down and you do these, Ryan, because I think it's fascinating how everybody does mock drafts, because you have to take into account 2 things. You have to take into account the ranking of the prospects, and you have to take into account the team needs. How much do you sort of marry those 2 things?
Yeah, I try to, because, we live. It's funny. Like, I've been doing this so long. Like, my first draft was the fall of 2018, the 2019 draft. So that's how long I've been doing it. And things have changed so dramatically on the internet in terms of people that are interested in the draft and people that cover the draft. And you sort of have to, you'll get called out if you just start slapping things together. So it is important to understand what teams are trying to do and what they historically like to do, and making that fit. You'll find this surprising. Fans still hate it, but that's okay. By the way, this is my annual moment to mention that the time that Jamie called me out on set, sitting next to Breece Hall. when I said that Ken Walker III was the best running back. It turns out I was proven right. I just want to say that. I was too afraid to say that to Brees's face. But I was reminded of that because Jamie loves to put me in situations where I could potentially get physical harm come my way. But I like to, you want to. I have my latest mock draft over here somewhere, and like I had Lee Hunter, for example. This is a defensive lineman who had a pretty good week down in Mobile out of Texas Tech. I had him going to the Houston Texans at 28, and I'm just as an example, he fits sort of what they look for. 6 years ago, I may not go that deep because I was doing a mock draft every other day. It felt like, but I do them a little less frequently now. But those things are important, and you're also sort of nice. Well done, Thomas. And you also want to see. I'm just curious. Who did I have the 49ers taking, Thomas? I think that's a little further down. So I think I had him taking a wide receiver that felt like something they would. Denzel Boston. Yeah. So there we go. So Mekhi Lemon going to the Rams, for example. Devontae Adams has one more year left in his deal. They need some help after Puka. You guys know this better than I do. And then Denzel, because Jawan Jennings' contract is up. They do have Ricky Pearsall. Brady Ayuk's not going to play there again. And he's sort of that big Jawan Jennings type, but he's a little bit more athletic. He's 6'4". He was actually returning punts for Washington. Had a touchdown this year, which is pretty crazy. So he's sort of an upgraded version of Jawan Jennings, who's a really good player. But those are some of the things you have to think about as you go through this process. And again, thankfully, I don't do one every week now. I do a mock draft every month or every 6 weeks or so.
All right. Why don't we start at the top, and then let's talk about Fernando Mendoza. And I guess you like him very similarly to Cam Ward, who had a nice season, but what do you think the potential is for Mendoza, presumably going to the Raiders?
I have no idea, and here's why I say that. Like, I love him as a prospect. I was telling Rand the other day, and actually anyone who listens, Fernando Mendoza might be my favorite player in any sport ever. Like, I don't know if I love someone more than I love Fernando Mendoza, not being related to him. I just love the. It's like he's right out of an episode of Leave It to Beaver, and he's this wholesome. I would imagine, like we get that. Azer, do you know what Leave It to Beaver is?
I mean, I've heard of it. I've never seen it. Yeah.
So three of us got that. No one else got it. But the point is,
you'll appreciate this, Ryan, that Pete Prisco calls me Eddie Haskell from time to time.
That is the most apt nickname ever. I could not agree more with that. I was saying before you came on, Jamie, that you were the worst instigator on planet Earth, and Dave corrected me and said you were the best. But either way, that is very true. But in terms of Fernando, we talked about him over the summer because he transferred from Cal, where he had the offensive line was not great at Cal. And I don't think I'm speaking out of line here. And he took hit after hit after hit. He would stay in the pocket and make big time throws. And that translated pretty quickly when he had much better players around him. So the reason I said I'm not sure if it's going to work out, Adam, is because, look at Baker Mayfield, look at Sam Darnold, look at Kirk Cousins, for example. Fit matters, man. And like, if you're going to a place that's wholly and completely dysfunctional, you are not going to have a chance. So we'll see if they get it right. I think Clint Kubiak is going to be their guy. So we'll find out after the Super Bowl and, how they decide to lessen the dysfunction in that organization. I don't know if having a minority owner like Tom Brady more involved is a good thing or not. We'll find out. But if the situation is the right situation, even on a bad team, because we saw it with Houston in 23 when they drafted CJ, and then we saw it the next year in Washington with Jaden Daniels, obviously with Drake May. You can take a quarterback and make him as good as you want if you get the coach right, and then the quarterback will follow. So that's my concern. I think if you put him on an average football team with good coaching and good GM, he's going to be awesome.
All right, listen, we got one big football game left for this season. It's coming up on Sunday, in case you haven't heard of it. But now's the time, if you haven't done it yet, to register with BetMGM. Because with BetMGM, you're going to get instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, boost tokens, and the best daily promotions in the business. And when you huddle up with BetMGM at your fingertips, every pass, every catch, and every game matter more than ever. All right, football's here. Don't miss out on any of the hard-hitting action. Place your money line, prop, and parlay bets with BetMGM today. Quick break. More with Ryan Wilson, the Oracle, when we come back.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
All right. So that's pretty much the quarterback position. Obviously we have a few months to talk about all this. Well, I guess not really. We have 2 months.
Hey, let me throw another name at you, Azer, real quick for quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And a guy, and Azer, you're a U guy too as well. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you and Dave are you guys, and Jamie with Florida. Carson Beck is going to get drafted on day 2. And I don't know if he's a day 2 pick given the way he's played, but teams like him. And I remember talking to folks at Georgia last year when he left that were okay seeing the Lamborghini peel out, making its way to South Florida. I talked to Dalen Everett at the Senior Bowl, who was cornerback, who's probably going to be a top 50 pick for Georgia. And he said he was happy for Carson's success. And I talked to his center, James Brockermeyer, whose dad works at CBS as well, the great Blake Brockermeyer. And he said Carson is one of his best friends. He was wholly impressed with how smart he was and all the things that he did, yada, yada, yada. And I've talked to teams that think he's like a prototypical system quarterback in a good way in the NFL. Will do what you ask him to do. And I just mentioned that just so he's on your radar. So when he gets drafted in the second or third round, you won't be like, oh, there he is. I think that's going to be a possibility.
Well, Ryan, if you had talked to Adam before the season started, he would have told you that Carson Beck would have been the number 1 overall pick.
Oh, here comes the instigator in chief. There he is. Okay. Are there any running backs to get excited about other than Love?
Jonah Coleman out of Washington, I mentioned before. Jadarian Price, Jeremiah's teammate at Notre Dame. The thing about Jadarian Price, and this will be of interest to fantasy folks, is that he caught 0 passes. He caught a handful more passes than all of us combined did last year. So you have to wonder what is his availability as a pass catcher in offenses once he gets there. Maybe he can do it. They didn't ask him to do it. Dave brought this up in the press box where we're watching practice. Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas is sort of a big physical straight line guy, and another little shifty guy that I think has a chance to be a sort of an early impact player. Shamari Taylor out of UVA, transferred from North Carolina Central. He's a little sort of Jalen Warren spark plug type player. But again, these guys get enough going off the board on day 3. Like that's how this class is. 2 names I didn't mention, which is sort of crazy, are the 2 running backs out of Penn State. And I think like Nick Singleton's the better athlete. He's a track guy, but I think Katron Allen is more consistent. And if you want to compare him to sort of what they have in Detroit with the Lions, like Nicholas Singleton is a lesser version of Jahmyr Gibbs athletically, but Katron Allen is David Montgomery, and that's what you're going to get. And you have to feel good about knowing that, even though he's not going to outrun everyone to the end zone every time he touches the ball. And he played better the last season and a half at Penn State, even though Singleton was probably a lot more talented physically.
I thought Allen was a great one-cut runner. It was my first real exposure to him at the Senior Bowl, and he wasn't my favorite running back there. That would be Washington Jr., but I thought that he was the better one of the Penn State twins. Ryan, it's kind of to follow up on Adam's question. Is there a running back that you think can be a lead 1A running back for an NFL team at some point within the first month and a half of the season? Or are we looking at a draft full of running backs outside of Love that are like good supplemental guys that can be 1B backs, third down backs, obviously very good depth pieces? Can you think about maybe 1 or 2 running backs that you named? And if you want to just give the names, you can. Guys that could be 1A backs. It might not begin the season that way, but by the time we get to middle of October, yeah, they could be.
So I'm furiously scrambling to see who was drafted last year because I forget the moment the draft is over. So Quinshon Judkins is a good example of someone who, rolled into the starting job before he got hurt, but he was a high second-round pick. Trevion Henderson shared time, of course. R.J. Harvey shared time when
it took Harvey a little while to get in, though.
Yeah,
and even then, it wasn't great.
Right, and what's his name got hurt? I'm sorry for not remembering your name.
J.K. Dobbins.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bashul Tootin was a 4th-round pick, and he shared time. Scadaboo sort of came in later, so I'm just refreshing my memory.
Okay, is there a Scadaboo in this draft? Because that's
all right. Let's see.
A perfect example.
So Le'Veon Moss is going to be interesting. He was
he
was banged up. I don't think he practiced the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
He was asked to go there. Texas A&M running back. He's a big physical guy, and he's a guy who can turn around and give the ball to. I do want to see how Jonah Coleman measures in terms of how big he actually is, because you guys know this better than I do. We live in a world where it's always going to be, almost certainly always, a running back by committee. Another name that I liked, Adam Randall out of Clemson. He's a bigger running back. He was he's sort of moved over from wide receiver. He was a wide receiver initially, so he gives you that versatility out of the backfield. The issue also with these guys being workhorse backs, almost all of them are super terrible at pass blocking. So you're not going to be on the field in third down in that situation. So that's something else to keep in mind. And the other name, the other name I'll mention, two other guys, Richard Hemby and then Kalen Black, the running backs out of Indiana. They're going to be day 3 guys, and they're going to be guys that are going to be awesome. They're going to be workhorse guys, sort of the Isaiah Pacheco type workhorse, or the Kyle Monanga, if you want the updated version of that, can come in and just get you tough yards and are always doing good things with the football.
Ryan, you have Love in your mock draft going to the Saints. What do you like about that fit?
Well, we don't know how much longer Alvin Kamara is going to be there, and I think they have Kendre Miller, and maybe they need help at wide receiver. I think that the biggest part of that story is that they're not looking for a quarterback because Tyler Shuck, at least from my perspective, outplayed expectations by a country mile. It's insane how good he was based on his tape at Louisville most recently, because I thought he was a day 3 guy. But Jeremiyah Love comes in and gives a youngish, he's 26, Tyler Shuck gives us a youngish quarterback one less thing to worry about. And the thing about Jeremiyah Love, when we talk about all those guys, Bijan and Jameer and Ashton, is that he can not only run the ball super effectively, but he's going to be able to make plays catching the ball out of the backfield. So if he doesn't go there, maybe he goes to the Chiefs with the very next pick, which feels sort of crazy. But, Ran Carthon, who was a running back at Florida and played in the league, likes to joke. I'll ask you guys what you think about this. Is the running back making a resurgence? Because it feels like they sort of are, but I don't know if that's just the recency bias of working with someone who was a running back.
No, they are. I think this trend of defenses taking away the deep ball, playing 2 deep safeties a lot, it's really transformed a lot of these offenses into saying, we're just going to run the ball down your throat then. So I think running – now, we saw a lot of committees this year, so I don't know if the feature running back is coming back, but running games, I think, are more important now than they were, 5 years ago or so. Teams are more willing to run the ball because defenses have adjusted to take away the deep ball, take away the big play in the passing game.
Agreed.
Okay, well, my confirmation there. By the way, I got to mention quickly, I was telling Dave in Mobile while he was holding court with all the people that know and love him, and I was drinking a non-alcoholic beer. That's also a true story. No moral grounds, just I'm old, and if I have one beer after 8 p.m., I can't function the next day. But that's where I'm at. You guys will get there. No reaction from Jamie. He seems to care less about this than Adam does. But my story is this. I mentioned to Dave that you can go, sometimes I'll go down the CBS Sports YouTube rabbit hole, and I found a clip of you guys. Do you remember the how to play fantasy football clip from 12 years ago where you guys were in lab coats?
Yeah.
That is still up there. And Jamie, your hair's a little darker. I probably had a little bit more hair back then, more than none. Adam somehow looks the same. Adam and Dave do. But it was a fun little stroll down memory lane. So I encourage folks to go check that out if you want to see this crew. Because I've been here.
Dave is not aged once. Dave looks exactly the same since the first day I met him.
Yeah.
I came out of the womb this way. Glasses, goatee.
45 years old. Dave has been 45 his whole life.
Yeah. I finally look younger than my age. It took 50 years.
You got there. That's a good thing. You got there. But I've been here since 2011 at CBS Sports. But Dave informed me that he is the elder statesman more than Pete Prisco. But Jamie and Adam, you guys have been here forever as well.
20 years for me this year.
Whoa.
20 years.
Thanks for making us feel old, Ryan.
We're all old. Trust me. Just because we're old in the same place.
Wisdom comes with age.
You started in 2006 or 7?
I started in 11.
No, Jamie, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, 20 years would be 2006.
Well, not really, though, because if 2006 was your first year, so 2025 would have been your 20th year, right?
This is 20 years that I've been employed by CBS, yes.
Okay. So I think 2006 was when I also started at CBS, but sort of differently. 2009 is when I started this job. Explain to me, Ryan, non-alcoholic beer.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, why not just get a soda?
I'm not a soda guy. I've never been a soda guy. And here's the thing, the non-alcoholic beer does not taste like beer at all, so you have to sort of squint and make it taste like it. But it's just something to kill time. I was telling Dave, after you cut the grass, you have a non-alcoholic beer, and you go through. I'm a rabbit hole guy, so I'll go through the grocery store trying to figure out which ones taste the closest to beer. But for some reason, like it's a flip switch. Like a few years ago, if I had a couple of beers after 8 p.m., the next morning I felt like I had like 10. I was like, all right, well, this can't be a thing.
And to be fair, you had to get up super early in Mobile.
Yeah. The other thing is they had radio row quotation marks where you get a chance to talk to the players individually. It was literally at 5:30 a.m.
Yeah.
So
Now, did you drink beer the night before you proposed? Because you fell asleep relatively early that night, right?
gosh, you talk about a long time ago. I got engaged. Oh, because there's a story behind it. It's like the worst proposal ever.
Best story ever.
We've heard.
sure.
Jamie makes him tell it every time.
Yeah, we don't need to rehash it. But I don't think I had any drinks. Although that would explain a lot more. Maybe I was doing drugs, Jamie. Maybe that was the explanation.
All right, let's get to wide receivers. You have 5 wide receivers in your first round mock. Most of them, I think, after pick 20. I think 4 of the 5 are after pick 20. How do you feel about the wide receiver class?
Ben,
like
please
these class.
rank them from hard liquor to white wine to light beer to like Guinness to
Wine coolers. I'll get wine coolers in there too.
Yeah.
By the way,
you have to comp them to alcoholic beverages, right? This is where we're at now.
I grew up in a super conservative Southern Baptist community in the 90s in North Carolina. So I did not drink until I got to college. The first time I was over the legal limitator was on Bartles and James wine coolers. I have never been sicker in my life than that as an 18-year-old freshman.
Ryan,
so that's out there.
I've never been drunk. I don't drink ever. It's never happened.
Okay. No, I didn't.
So that's why I don't understand the non-alcoholic beer thing, because I just I don't like the taste of alcohol.
Yeah, that's right. You condition yourself to like the taste of it, and then your body can't handle it, so you have to sort of go to backups. For someone who doesn't drink, I would like a little bit more pep in your step, because you're acting like you had 8 beers before you came on.
I was good until Jamie popped on. I was like, he's gonna instigate.
What'd you call him? The instigator in chief. I see.
Chief, yep.
All right,
these receivers.
These wide receivers. And here's the thing: like people on the fans get irate that you have Jordan Tyson going in the 20s, but if you remember a few years ago, JSN was the first wide receiver taken at 20. And then it was JSN and Quentin Johnson, and then Addison, and then Zay Flowers, I think. They all went off 4 in a row. So there's, depending on what teams need, and sometimes wide receivers get pushed down. Carnell Tate's my wide receiver 1. He's a big contested catch machine, and he's a straight line speed guy, too. He's going to win down the field. He got a lot better, I thought, in 2025 than he was in 2024, and he was pretty good. My number 2 and number 3 are pretty close in Denzel Boston and Jordan Tyson. I mentioned Boston 6'4". There are going to be questions about his deep speed. I think he separates plenty good enough, but those will be the conversations that folks will want to have. So, I think he's a better athlete. He's not going to win in a foot race, but a better athlete in terms of lateral movement than DK Metcalf, who you asked to do basically run slants and run go balls. Jordan Tyson is going to be like the guy who can do it all. He's probably 6'1", maybe 6 feet, but he plays bigger than that. Physical, contested catch guy. His brother, I don't know his name because I'm an NBA guy, but his brother plays in the NBA, so he has that sort of athleticism in his family tree. And the 2 other guys that I have in the top 5, and this is the way they're ranked as well, Casey Concepcion and Mekhi Lemon, they're also really close together. They're similar type players. Casey played at Texas A&M and slide outside return guy, and Mekhi does the same thing. And they are the Khalil Shakirs. They're the Amon-Ra St. Browns. Those are those type players in terms of you get the ball in their hands and let them do the rest. And at some point, you think the Bills are going to take a wide receiver. It could be any one of these guys, probably not Carnell Tate, because he won't be there. There'll be concerns that Denzel Boston's too much like Keon Coleman. That may be a conversation. I think he's a more explosive version of Keon Coleman. So if you're looking for a big target for Josh Allen, and then Casey Concepcion and Mekhi Lemon, do you need 2 Khalil Shakirs in your roster, for example? And I would argue you can't have enough of them because he's so important to what they do offensively. But those are my top 5. One other name that could potentially be in the mix, Chris Brazzell, who I mentioned, the sort of straight line guy out of Tennessee. And I love Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. We know about Elijah Sarratt, but I think Omar Cooper Jr. has a chance to be a top 50 pick. But we'll find out how that shakes itself out.
Yeah, I hate Indiana. Tight end. How many? It's not going to compare to last year's class, I guess. So what do you think about tight ends?
Yeah, Kenyon Sadiq we've talked about. He's a really good blocker. He's a really good athlete. Didn't have the season. The other concern I have with tight end, I'm actually curious how it works out for fantasy, but it seems like you get the tight ends if you draft them on day 2, they're more successful than the guys you put so much on day 1, unless they're named Brock Bowers. We've seen that in Detroit. We've seen that at other places. And sometimes it feels like you find these tight ends like Jake Tonjes. Like no one knew who Jake Tonjes was outside of his family until 8 months ago. But after Kenyon Sadiq, I have Alik Stowers out of Vandy as a late day 2 guy, Terrence Carter Jr. out of Texas Tech, Joe Royer out of Cincy. Those guys are all late day 2, early day 3. Athletic guys who aren't going to block and, move tight ends, guys that can play in the slot. And get into space and make plays. Michael Trigg is also an interesting name to keep an eye on out of Baylor. Played with Sawyer Robertson, and he is one of the freakiest athletes in this draft class. He just has to get better as a route runner. He was sort of all over the place and not necessarily where he was going to be. And one other name I'll mention is I talked to this young man at the Senior Bowl as well, Justin Jolie out of NC State, another freakish athlete. Not going to be a great blocker, but that's not why you're drafting these guys top 100. But those are those sort of athletic guys that can make plays and give trouble to teams trying to match up with linebackers or safeties in the slot.
Dave?
So one of the ideas I had for today's show, and this is something that we can all participate in, is playing matchmaker specifically with the wide receivers. Because, as you said, Ryan, there's 5 of them that seem to be – it's like a consensus 5. But I'm wondering what would be the best case scenario for each of the 5 based on their skill set, based on the opportunities across the league. And so I was wondering if we could go through each one, you give me the top traits for each receiver, and then maybe Jamie can name a team that would be a good fit for that receiver based on how you've kind of viewed him. So the first name, Carnell Tate, Ohio State. I've watched him play. I've seen him in person. I think he's pretty good. Might even be able to be a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Do you agree with that? And what are his positive traits, Ryan?
And we're going to find out after this commercial break on Fantasy Football Today. We'll be right back with wide receiver matchmaker after this.
What's he like? The happy-faced killer?
You mean my dad? Be glad you never have to know.
You think that you're so much better than me. You're just like your old man.
I'm not like you at all.
Okay, excellent idea here from Dave. So you're going to give us the scouting report, I guess, on these wide receivers. Jamie's going to give us a team and that the wide receiver fits with. And you can also tell us, Ryan, where you have him going in their mock, because we see Carnell Tate. So Carnell Tate out of Ohio State, you have him to the Giants. Discuss.
Yeah, I mean, I can make this game super easy. All these wide receivers should go to either the Rams or the 49ers, and they would have immense success.
Sure, right.
But in terms of the game, so this is just what I wrote up on the mock draft. Tate's a long strider, big catch radius, reliable hands, and he stacks guys down the field. So he wins consistently, sort of getting off either man press coverage or just running past defenders. And he is unofficially 6'3". We'll see how tall he is. That probably means he's 6'1.5" or 6'2", but he plays somehow bigger than that. And he's like, he would be a number 2, obviously, for the Giants, but I think Dave's right. He could be a 1 or 1.5 somewhere, given the way he's played. I mean, he dominated at Ohio State, where Jeremiyah Smith was, I would think all people would agree, was number 1. So he can certainly take up that number 2 role as well.
Jamie, where do you want to see Carnell Tate go?
I think the Giants makes a lot of sense, but I would probably go to the team picking right before the Giants because they have a huge need to help their quarterback, and that's the Titans. So seeing him as maybe the 1 there, I always like when you see these teams, and it's a lot of it that we've seen success mostly with free agents, or trades. Buffalo, Stephon Diggs, for example, the Patriots, Stephon Diggs, getting these guys, a true number 1 guy. The Panthers tried to do it last year with McMillan. I think you got to help Cam Ward. The 2 young guys that they drafted last year are good players. They're just not an alpha, and Tate could be an alpha. So I know they need help defensively. You have Bain going there, makes a lot of sense as well, but you have to help your young quarterback. And I think that's something that you let Saleh sort of work his magic defensively, and you put the pieces in place offensively around Cam Ward. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 1 pick earlier.
I love that. That would be, I wasn't even thinking about that, but to me, that would be amazing to have Tate go to Tennessee and have Dable kind of work his magic with both Ward and Tate. I think I'm probably going to come out with Tate as my favorite receiver in this draft as well. What about Jordan Tyson? I think he's the next receiver in your mock. Is he your wide receiver too? And what do you love about him, Ryan?
He's actually pretty close with Denzel Boston, and I'll tidy those up as we get through the process. I mentioned that Tyson occasionally battles with soft tissue injuries, but he's super explosive. And, just reading the thing here, size, speed, and catch radius. He wins at all three levels. He's a hands catcher, which is sort of interesting that I say that, because thinking about Ryan Williams out of Alabama, who's going to be in the first round conversation next year, freshman year was outstanding. He caught everything. And then this year he just struggled immensely. So that has not been a concern for Jordan Tyson. He hits top end speed right away. I had him going to the Steelers at 21. Maybe he's not there, but they need a number 2 opposite DK. One of the things that you wrestle with is, do you want to have 2 similar-ish type receivers? I mentioned that with the Bills comp as well. And again, he's a different player than DK. You can have 2 big receivers out there for sure. And I think when you're the Steelers, especially when your number 2 receiver is Calvin Austin and he's somehow shorter than me, that's not a recipe for sustained success pushing the ball down the field.
I think it makes a lot of sense, the call, to the Steelers. I think that the interesting teams that we'll see in the receiver mix, the Giants, if they don't get Tate, or, that team clearly with quarterback solved, that they could trade down and maybe, look to somebody like Tyson a little bit later in the draft. I think Cleveland is going to be in the wide receiver hunt, just looking at their receiving core. Obviously, it's a disaster, but that doesn't necessarily mean round 1 they have so many needs. But you could see, again, I think he's a good number 2. I don't think, Tyson's a number 1 right now. So Pittsburgh makes a ton of sense, but it's just hard, I think, for us to evaluate it fantasy wise, because we don't know who the quarterback of the Steelers is going to be.
What if he's the replacement, not necessarily in terms of exactly the role for Stephon Diggs, but just being on the field for Stephon Diggs? And I'm not saying that Tyson's going to fall to 31 or 32 in the draft. Patriots might have to move up to get him if they so choose to get him, but they've got so many deep speed guys already with Booty. Kyle Williams, I think, can be that guy. Matt Collins is going to be a free agent, but he could also come back. They can test the safeties down the field. The thing that I like best about Tyson is his short area quickness and how quickly he can uncover and get open within a second and a half of the snap just by changing direction one time, Ryan. So I wonder if that would be a pretty decent fit, because I agree with Jamie. I don't think he's necessarily a number 1 wide receiver, but somebody who could be, you said it yourself, Ryan, he can win at all 3 levels. Somebody who can win in the short and intermediate for the Patriots. I think he'd be a very good fit there with Drip.
Yeah, my last line there, which I haven't read in a while. He's an asset. They used him a lot in the screen game at Arizona State, so they do get the ball in his hands and just let him run through arm tackles. It is crazy, though, that we started the year talking about all the needs of wide receiver for the Patriots, and we're not really talking about that now just because the offense has been so good. So a lot of credit to Drake and then the wide receivers you mentioned, and Josh McDaniels. But they probably would consider wide receiver a need, but they're somehow in the Super Bowl with undrafted Kayshon Boutte, with Matt Collins, who was a wide receiver 4 in his previous stops. So it's a pretty nutty place that they find themselves.
Yeah, they strike me as a team that'll go and draft the best player available, regardless of.
I was going to say, I would expect them to kind of do what they did with Diggs, is trying to find some aging veteran that can get sort of a reboot or a fresh start someplace else. Maybe we get aggressive for an AJ Brown type of deal, or a Tyreek Hill type situation, or they just kind of, find somebody that's kind of in that Diggs range of unhappy, but still can play.
God, they get Tyreek.
Yeah, he might be available too. That would be something. If he can still run, we don't know. But speaking of run, KC Concepcion, is he your 3rd? And not a big guy, but a fast guy.
Yeah, incredibly fast. And he's 4'5". He's tied with Mekhi Lemon. They're similar type players. And again, transferred from NC State, went to Texas A&M, had a really good season, offers return ability, can play outside, can play in the slot. He's going to, again, win on the short and intermediate routes. They get the ball in his hands. He makes plays in space. He'll run through arm tackles, all those things. And where did I have Casey? I had him going to the Bills. And again, you might say, well, that's too much like Shakir. I don't care. Like, they need something, because what they had last year obviously wasn't sustainable. It cost Sean McDermott his job on some level.
Well, they love Keon Coleman.
Pagula does, we know.
Yeah, Jamie, would you rather see the Bills get a more big-bodied outside receiver?
I mean, on paper, yes, clearly, they need, sort of like that true alpha type of guy. But, as we've seen, it doesn't happen all the time. But like, Ryan mentioned 2 guys that, some of these guys are comps to. And you said Amon-Ra St. Brown and Khalil Shakir. Well, St. Brown can clearly, be classified as an alpha and as a 1. So you don't have to be a big physical receiver to still be the best receiver on your team. So, Buffalo needs so much help at this position, so I think they're in the market for it. Again, whether that's marked for receiver, whether that's in this draft range, if they move up, if they go get somebody trade free agency, makes a ton of sense.
What if Seattle gets him? And Seattle, and now we're talking about the end of round 1. Seahawks, I don't know if they're going to re-sign Shaheed. Cooper Kupp is 32, 33 years old.
He'll be 33 before next season.
Torrey Horton's still going to be on the team, but he's obviously not playing in the Super Bowl. He's got an injury to come back from, and I think Concepcion's more of a complete receiver anyway. This would be an unbelievable compliment to Jackson Smith and Jigba in Seattle. And you could almost say the same thing of Concepcion with the Giants, with Malik Neighbors. You can think about other teams that have that stud number 1 receiver and then question marks after that.
Rams.
I think that's where he fits in, is to be that like awesome number 2 wide receiver for an NFL team.
Yeah, I think that's right. Again, you're gonna see Jets, Giants, Browns, 49ers, obviously, Bills, obviously. Their receiving cores are decimated at this point. The Commanders, another team that's losing Debo potentially as a free agent. And an aging Terry McLaurin. Like, there's so many teams that have needs, and it's not the best class clearly, but still some talent that'll be available to them.
Okay. What are you loving about Denzel Boston out of Washington?
He's one of my favorite players in this class, and people typically aren't as high on him as I am, but he's 6'4" and he moves like he's 5'11". And I mentioned him previously. There'll be some questions about his deep speed. I think he plays plenty fast. And the other thing is the fit with the 49ers. What I was thinking about, Juwan Jennings is not going to win a bunch of foot races against other wide receivers. All Juwan Jennings does in that offense is get open and make plays, usually underneath, short and intermediate stuff. Denzel can do all three. They use him in the screen game as well. I don't think you want him returning punts in the NFL. I could be wrong. I'm not a special teams guy, but Kyle Shanahan, they have needs there at wide receiver. Guys are going to be up. Ayuk's going to be out. Pearsall struggled to stay healthy. So I think that makes some sense there. But they have a bunch of other needs as well. But I like the idea of him going. You talk about fit matters. It's hard to go to a Kyle Shanahan offense and not be successful. We've seen some wide receivers go there, and mostly because of injuries, not get on the field as younger players. But they find ways to win without their stars, whether it's George Kittle or Mac Jones has to play or whatever it is. But we see some receivers. Kendrick Bourne had to show up, and he had some chemistry with his old teammate Mac Jones. So that's why I like Denzel and San Fran, just because of his versatility and potentially replacing Juwan Jennings if they don't re-sign him.
And is this more realistic for Buffalo, maybe? Because if he goes late round 1, that's where Buffalo's picking. Could this be a realistic fit for the Bills?
Well, if you guys are okay with upgraded version of Keon Coleman, and it sounds like you are, so he's a big downfield threat, and Josh can just throw the ball up as opposed to having to thread the needle every time he's running for his life back there.
Okay.
And then the last name is Mekhi Lemon, but I feel like, you tell me, Ryan, it feels like he's very similar to Concepcion.
Yeah, so it'll be what flavor of that ice cream do you like? Is he more explosive? Is he less explosive? I think they're in the same conversation. I know some scouts wonder about his deep speed, and he plays fast. He could run a 4.3 at the combine. If he runs a 4.58, I'm not saying he will. That'll be we'll have to talk about it. But if you just watch him play, he's just dominating guys. One of the things that is interesting, though, the Notre Dame game where the weather was horrible in South Bend in the middle of the season, he struggled, and he went against, I think the cornerback's name's Leonard Moore. He's going to be a first-round pick next year. Leonard Moore shut him down from the slot. So that's something he's going to have to explain when teams talk to him. But every other rep against Illinois, he went crazy. Every other rep, he is just taking over games. And their quarterback, Jaden Mayava, is going to have a chance to be a first-round pick next year as well. And to your larger conversation, Dave, he's not a number 1, but he's a number 2 or number 3, and he's going to get open against your number 2 or number 3 cornerback consistently, especially from the slot. So he gives you that versatility. And again, if Sean McVay is drawing up plays for you in the dirt, there's a chance you're going to be successful, assuming Matthew Stafford's back as well.
Who's got the better ability between Lemon and Concepcion?
The better what? I'm sorry.
Yards after catch, because that's one of the things I always think about when it comes to Shanahan.
Yeah, they're similar. I think Casey Concepcion probably has a little more juice, but it's close. Like, I'm not saying Mekhi Lemon isn't twitchy in the open field, but they're very similar players.
All right.
How do these guys compare to Matthew Golden and Luther Burden, let's say?
Yeah, I thought Burden should have been a first-round pick. I know that some teams had some concerns not about off-field stuff, but he wasn't super interesting in the interviews, and they couldn't get a read on him. But athletically, he was lights out at Mizzou. And I think Matthew Golden's a track guy, and he didn't quite put it together at Green Bay. But the way he played at Texas last year, he outplayed every other wide receiver in that roster, including Isaiah Bond. So they're a step below. I would draft both Luther and Golden ahead of these two, but they would all be first-round picks.
All right. Well, Ryan, I think you got to get on the air in 10 minutes, so I appreciate you coming on the show. This will not be the last time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on my energy from between now and the next time we speak to you. I'm going to work on it, and I will get better. But thank you very much for coming on.
Ryan, speaking of the Oracle, what's your favorite Keanu Reeves movie?
Well, I just watched John Wick again. I'd forgotten it. It's a fun watch, but it's got to be The Matrix. Like The Matrix, like Johnny Mnemonic is one of the worst movies ever made. Shout out to the early 90s sci-fi movies. But The Matrix, you have to go with The Matrix.
What do you think Adam's favorite Keanu Reeves movie is of all time?
Is it Bill and Ted's?
Well, it's a joke, you know.
Or is it Parenthood?
Not a joke. The first time we ever discussed this, you said this was your favorite.
It's Parenthood. Shout out Martha Plimpton.
I don't think that Parenthood is a Keanu Reeves movie, but I do like Parenthood better than any Keanu Reeves movie. Yeah,
you have some wild takes, and that might be among the wildest, Adam.
Dude, come on.
Some other wild movie takes, don't you?
Look at that. Yeah, of course. But look at that cast. Steve Martin, Rick Moranis, like that.
Nice.
Do I need to say Keanu Reeves?
Martha Plimpton, who already shouted out. Ted Danson's wife, whose name I can't remember right now. She plays.
Steenberg, Mary Steenberg.
Nice. Look at Jamie with the deep pull. Yeah,
Diane Weist, whatever.
Yeah,
she's
that's
great.
right.
It's
Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix is in it. Come on, this is an all-star movie.
I can't believe I guessed Parenthood, and that was actually it.
Because it's great. You knew where to go.
He's also the same character in Bill and Ted, but just different.
He was pretty similar.
I'll just say this before I get kicked off. Keanu is supposed to be an amazing human being. I don't know, but I will say this. For his acting ability, quotation marks, that man has made quite a career for himself. And I think it just goes to show if you're a good guy, you can get far in this business.
Yeah, he's not like Robert De Niro, but you find the right role for him. He's very good. He's very good as John Wick, right? He's very good in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Point Break, as a lot of people are mentioning.
Yeah, that's right. Point Break. I am an FBI agent.
Yep. What about Shane Falco?
He's great at well,
I don't. You know what? I don't think I saw the entirety of that movie. That's The Replacements, right, Dave?
Ooh, yeah. Really good.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah. Really good.
Go watch it before you do your mock draft number 85.
All right, I will do it. Thank you,
Kick back
guys.
with a non-alcoholic and watch the.
Thanks,
At
Ryan.
least
You're
you
the
don't put
best.
ice in your beer.
At least I don't. Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
All right, man. Thank you
Ryan.
very much.
Awesome.
We've got to talk about Matt Nagy, and let's finish up with our news and notes. So
You have Dan on for that, right?
oh man, I gotta check in on Dan, make sure he's okay.
You can't be happy about this.
I don't know how. Am I missing something here? I mean, I don't know what to make of his Chiefs time. Right, Matt Nagy, first year as the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs was actually Mahomes' rookie year, and Alex Smith was the quarterback, and they had a great year. They were number 1 or number 2 in scoring, and then he got the Bears head coaching job, and some success. His quarterbacks were Mitchell Trubisky and Justin Fields for a year, so he never had great talent there. And then he goes back to Kansas City for 3 years as the offensive coordinator, and they've been kind of an average offense in this time. But he's not calling the plays, so he probably wasn't going to get any credit for the Alex Smith year, right? Because Andy Reid calls the plays. So should we give him the blame for these last 3 years of his Chiefs offense, which hasn't been that good, didn't have Tyreek Hill. They also didn't have Tyreek Hill 4 years ago, and they had a great offense. So I don't really know what to make of Matt Nagy, but it was, I guess, an uninspiring hire from Giants fans' perspective. Jamie, what do you think of it?
I would agree. I mean, look, it's got to be something that you take into account of anytime we have these guys that aren't play callers, but they're surrounded by great talent, because he's been part of the game plan. And, obviously is a guy that Andy Reid has trusted, and they've had a lot of team success, so I always look at it like, you hear me say this a lot, like what do they do in pockets of the season? What do they do in pockets of the game, in stretches of the game, and so like, this is the greatness of Patrick Mahomes, but it's also the greatness of this coaching staff, which he's a part of. Okay, we need to go make a play. Here are the 3 or 4 plays that we know are going to work. And, Mahomes executes them, the players, perform. A lot of it, though, I think on some of the blame per se, you want to put it that way. Like they've been really beat up over the last couple of years, with all the games that they played in the postseason. Wide receivers missing time, offensive line in and out. Question marks there. The run game, Pacheco seems to get going, and then he can't sustain being healthy, etc. So he's got great young pieces in place. If Neighbors and Scadaboo are healthy, you saw what Jackson Dart was able to accomplish without Neighbors on the field, and for the majority of that without Scadaboo. And so if you have the offensive line intact with what Dart showed, with what Neighbors has proven, and what Scadaboo showed, like there's going to be a lot of reasons to gravitate toward these players for our purpose. So I think they're not done yet. I'm sure there'll be another receiver added. I'm sure there'll be more offensive line, change, whether that's, turnover or addition, however you want to define it. And then again, could we see an Isaiah Likely type player or somebody who's been associated to John Harbaugh or who's out there that makes some sense for Nagy also, that enhances this system that he's going to design. So I don't think it's something that you say, okay, I'm running away from the Giants because of Matt Nagy. The same way I would have said you're not running toward the Giants because if it would have been Todd Monken. So I think you just sort of look at these players and say they're really good players. There's a lot to like about them. And just putting them in perspective, healthy Malik Neighbors will be at worst case a second-round pick. Healthy Cam Scadaboo could be a third-round pick. Jackson Dart's going to be drafted as a top 10 quarterback, and whatever other pieces that we decide to look at this with Wan'Dale Robinson as a free agent, like there could be still a lot of great production from this team.
If you were curious about players from Kansas City that are going to be free agents that maybe Matt Nagy brings in because they're familiar with him, Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton, Juju Smith-Schuster, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. I'd be surprised if more than one of those guys ended up in New York and contributing in New York.
Thornton makes some sense because if they draft a guy, lose Wan'Dale, now you have and Slayton walks, now you have a guy to stretch the field. That
Slayton's under contract.
Oh, yes,
Slayton's under contract. It's Robinson and Isaiah Hodgkins who are free agents.
So
they could always let Slayton out of the contract.
A fourth receiver that can make a splash player,
right? And someone who kind of knows what Matt Nagy's going to ask of them. And as far as the offensive line goes, they're definitely trending in the right direction. I'd love to see them add some depth there, nonetheless. Does it mean anything to either of you that the Chiefs let Nagy go? That they didn't try and sign him to an extension? They replaced him with Eric Bieniemy. Should that mean anything, or could it even be mutual, or where Matt Nagy says, you know what, I want to go out on my own? I don't know. But I'm wondering what that means, that he's not staying in Kansas City. Could that be a bad thing instead of a good thing?
I mean, he was in the mix for the Titans head coaching job. Initially, he was considered the favorite. Sure. And so I'm sure that it was maybe a mutual parting if I had to, assign something to it, especially with what Andy Reid said about him on the way out. And also knowing that Bieniemy was available and that relationship that Reid and Bieniemy have, so it was probably like, hey, you're better off either getting a head coaching job somewhere else, clearly, or if you want to prove yourself as a play caller, it's never going to happen here to that level. Go do that someplace else, get your, stripes and get another head coaching job opportunity if it works out well. And I'm going to go back with somebody that I'm comfortable with and everybody's happy.
I like to think about the athleticism of certain NFL players and what they can do in situations that are off schedule. And can they succeed? Can they overcome a bad play? Can they make a guy miss? It could even be something as simple as that. And I look at Dart, I look at Scadaboo, I look at Neighbors, and when they're right, they can all do that. So even if there's a not so great play call from Matt Nagy, they might be able to overcome that. And they're going to be exciting players to draft, even if Nagy's there. So a little bit of a wet blanket, but not enough for me to say, yeah, I'm out on the Giants. No one's going to say that at this point.
One of the Giants beat writers, Art Stapleton, he is like very pro Nagy, and doesn't really understand the Nagy criticism, it seems, based on his tweets. I think the Nagy criticisms are very clear. I mean, how do you go to be the Chiefs offensive coordinator and have an average offense for 3 straight years? I don't know, but this is, could fall on Andy Reid.
We happen to know someone who's a very big pro Matt Nagy guy. He played for Matt Nagy, And so maybe we should talk to him and ask him what he thinks about what are we missing, or what should we be focusing on with him.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say that Art tweeted, quote, Matt Nagy did not return to Kansas City because he wanted to pursue head coaching jobs. He reportedly was a finalist in Tennessee. Also, he wants to call plays. So
yeah,
I don't think you just got rid of him. And Andy Reid does speak very, very highly of him. And actually, there's a great interview that our Jonathan Jones did with Matt Nagy and Mahomes and Andy Reid. Talked about, this was before the hire, how Nagy had one of his friends help him compile a big document of anonymous players, coaches, people that worked with him, played for him, and the things they said that were nice about him and the things they said that they didn't like about him. And he did this very big, deep dive into his own flaws to become a better coach. It was a really interesting interview. I'll see if I can retweet it. Other news items. Sean McVay keeping his fingers crossed about Matthew Stafford returning in 2026. He also expects Devontae Adams back with the Rams.
Yeah, we should keep our fingers crossed too.
Yes. Yeah. Drake May's shoulder is feeling good. So he says he's turned a corner. We hope he's 100% for Sunday's game. Tomorrow we do our big Super Bowl preview. Pittsburgh is close to hiring Minnesota tight ends coach. Brian, Jamie, how do you think I pronounce this one?
I don't even know.
Angelicchio, maybe, to be their new offensive coordinator. So they're going to go to the Vikings tree, but they've got Mike McCarthy. Todd Monken is going to call plays. He did not commit to Shedeur Sanders being their starting quarterback. They also hired an offensive coordinator, Travis Switzer. He was the Ravens run game coordinator, but it's going to be Monken calling plays. Mike LaFleur is going to call plays for Arizona. Gus Bradley is going to become Tennessee's defensive coordinator. He has a lot of experience recently from San Francisco, so he comes over with Robert Saleh. Baltimore hired Anthony Weaver, a former Ravens assistant who was recently the Dolphins defensive coordinator, to be the new Ravens defensive coordinator. Denver promoted quarterbacks coach Davis Webb to offensive coordinator. And the Falcons, Matt Ryan, he did not commit to Michael Penix as the starting quarterback, kind of played the injury card. Let's see where he's at. But we'll see what they do at quarterback. They're expected to release Kirk Cousins. And the last news item I have is that apparently the NFL players are currently not on board with playing an 18th game, whereas the owners seem very, very interested in an 18th game.
Which means there will eventually be an 18th game.
Yeah. Can we just do it like in 2031 or whenever? I really don't want another week. I also don't want an international game every week. It's just.
I mean, there's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not fun.
I don't want it to ever be below 60 degrees in Florida. And I'm never going to get that wish, at least not these days.
God, it's so beautiful.
18 games are coming. To me, this is a negotiating ploy between the Players Association and the league. So
yeah, good luck, players. You lose.
Yeah, the players will get something out of it. I don't know what.
Well, they won't. They won't. They will be playing an 18th game.
Yeah, you can't stop this train. It's coming.
Well, they can stop it if they
18th
want.
18th game, international games. Chugga. It's coming down the track, Adam. Right to your workflow every
I have
week.
mixed feelings about the international games because I like, it's at 9:30 in the morning. I like being able to just watch a game, spotlight game, focus on that. But also it makes the day very long on Sunday. Very, very long.
Oh, you're such a baby.
Well, the days are long anyway. But
they are, but it's nice to have a little bit of time before the madness
You're
starts.
such a baby.
Not a baby. Not a baby. Not a baby, Jamie. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow with our Super Bowl 60 preview. Looking forward to that. All right, see you then. Have a good one.